Your Humanities Half-hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Welcome to your Humanities Half-hour. I'm Catherine Perry. Well, a few short weeks ago, we had a great guest in studio, and I wanted to have him back as soon as possible to share with us his traditional knowledge, and it is Mr. Donald Mendiola, traditional cultural practitioner, also a Chamorro bilingual teacher in the CNMI public school system, affectionately known as Señor Mendiola. That's how most of our listeners are going to identify you, correct?
I guess. A lot of them were probably my former students.
Well, there was just so many things I felt we could talk about and have you share about with our listeners based on your experience. So I asked you specifically today if we could talk about what I feel is a disappearing art or craft in our Marianas community, and that is Pandanas work, I guess is what I would call it.
Pandanas weaving, yeah, yes.
Take us back to the old days.
Okay.
What do you recall and remember from when you were a child?
Okay, I was somewhere about between 5 and 6 years old. I was always very interested in weaving because I used to see my grandfather weaving thatch, weaving coconut leaf fans, and fish baskets. So that's what I learned to weave, first of all. First, I learned to weave the fan when I was about 6 years old. Let's just say 6. I would weave baskets, weave the fan, and the thatch. Then I was about 8 years old when I learned to weave the coconut leaf hat. From there, I just wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more than just weaving baskets from coconut leaves. And so I was interested in learning to weave pandanus leaves because I used to walk around in the village in District 1. I recall when I was younger, almost every other house had an old lady
or grandma. I was going to say an old lady sitting outside.
Yeah. And they'd be weaving mats in the houses. They would be on the floor and weaving mats because people would ask them to weave mats for them because back in those days when I was younger, it was rare for a household, for a house to have a bed. Okay, so everybody slept on woven mats, and if there were beds, then they were probably made from plywood and 2x4 frames, and then they stuffed the cotton from the cotton tree. They cleaned them all out, and they made cushions out of those for the mattress. But that was very rare. So almost every family had a mat to sleep on. So I was interested. So the last time we talked, I told you about my learning how to weave concurrently with learning how to make medicine from my grandmother. So that's what I did. Mondays I would learn about medicine. Tuesday I would learn about weaving. Wednesday medicine. So I was alternating daily.
Wow.
With my learning from my grandmother. So I was 9 years old when I learned to weave mats. And basically the reason why it was, almost everybody knew how to weave because it was a basic necessity. It was necessary. People wove big baskets for rice containers.
What do you mean by rice containers?
Huge baskets that are like, you have to hug those. So they're about the size of, I'd say maybe baskets that were about 10 to 15 gallons volume.
And then how, people would cook rice inside of them?
They would weave that for the raw rice prior to cooking. Yeah.
Okay.
They buy it from the sack and just pour it in there and then cover it with another basket, and it's woven usually a 4-ply. So that would be very thick, and it was very durable, very sturdy. And it stayed, and they used it for many years. And so they wove everything out of pandanus because pandanus is a very strong material for weaving. And so I learned to weave big baskets too from the pandanus, but then I found out that it would be better if I wove the mats because I would be using so many leaves just for the baskets. So when I learned to weave mats, I was making my own mats. with my own first mat when I was 9 years old. It wasn't very big, but it was about 5 by 4.5 feet, which was it's a
Big
good
enough
size.
for you.
Yeah, it's like a picnic size, right? I learned that, and then I learned to weave purses as well, drawstring ones, the square ones with the separate covers, or the covers that just fold over. The small katut, or the small baskets for betel nut that was used by the elderly. I learned to make hats also. I wove hats from the pandanas.
Now, these hats, were they used for like a special occasion, or were they used for on the farm?
My grandfather used to wear his hat. He's got a special hat for going out to parties and like before going into church, he would wear it in the Jeep and then takes it off and then walks into the church. But he has his own separate hats for using in the farm or even going fishing. So hats were very important back then. My grandfather wore hats all the time.
So what was the difference between these 3 different kinds of hats that your grandfather wore?
Well, it's about the size, the wing.
Okay.
It's more like the ones that he uses at the farm was like more like a sombrero, which is very huge.
Big brim. Okay.
Because it protected him from the sun.
Okay.
And the decorative one that he uses for parties is like a shorter, smaller, kind of a smaller wing kind of a hat that is like stylish.
Mm-hmm.
Because they put a band on top, like a black band, that my aunt would weave and make for him all the time. And he usually exchanges it with fish that he caught in the mornings when we go together. And we get like cleans up some D-O or E-E and brings it to my aunt, and they just exchange it. It's like for
so he would bring fish and she would
and then
make
she
the
would just
band.
make, No, the whole thing.
The whole hat,
yeah.
What about his fisherman's hat? How did that compare to the others?
Well, the same aunt would weave another one, but it's almost similar to the one from for the farm. But he had to have a tilt more on the front. So because of the glare of the sun, when he has to look to see where the fish are in the ocean.
Wow,
So it had a little tilt.
I know that, for example, in the Marshall Islands, they have different, for example, width of the pandanas.
Yes.
And the smaller the width of the leaf when you weave it, the more fine or
the finer
more expensive
Yes.
that piece would be. Is there anything like that in Chamorro? Weaving?
Well, the finer ones were like, back then was like maybe $5 for the classy hat and about $3 for the farm and for fishing. So it was very cheap then.
Mm-hmm.
And when I made my hats and they asked me to buy my hats, I go, I don't sell it for $5. It's like, so the first hat that I sold was, I think, $20. And I felt that it was still not enough, but then that's the reason why I don't weave to sell. I weave to preserve the knowledge. I weave because it's for the sake of the art.
How many hours would you say would go into weaving a, say, for example, church hat, the little bit stylish one?
Oh, that would be from morning to evening.
And let's also include the time to process, which I do want to talk about altogether, because I have also seen people, normally people not from here, who would say, why is it so expensive when they see some products made from pandanas and it takes a lot of time. So just as an example, one of these fine church hats, processing the finished product, how many hours do you think?
That'll be about 20 hours
for one hat?
Yes. Especially when you have to cut the leaves when they're green so you can have them nice and white, and so it looks very fine. You have to cut the leaves when they're green. You have to remove the edges, remove the spines, and then you have to boil it for about 20-30 minutes, then roll it all up and then throw it out in the sun, dry it for about maybe 3 days till it gets white, and then you stretch it out, make it all nice and smooth and straight. Then you roll them back up until you're ready to weave them. So it's very lengthy. When I used to go to the farm to get pandanas, to get the leaves, it would take me all day just cutting and removing the spine from the leaves. And that's like one whole day. And then another day just to boil them. and to roll them individually and dry them out in the sun.
Now, do you boil them on a open fire?
Open fire, huge pot, very big pot. And I have to tie them all together, bundle them all together, and leave it there in the boiling water for a long time, actually 30 minutes, yeah. And then you have to take them out, put in the next. Because when I used to get the leaves, I would gather around enough for about two mats, and that's a lot of leaves that I get. So when I do get, I process all the leaves, I would have supply for about 6 months of weaving bags and stuff like that. And I preserve them. I save them, put them aside, and weave them. Right now, there's a big problem with weaving now because of the typhoon. The typhoon has destroyed all the pandanus on the island, even my pandanus. I used to have 3 big pandanus trees, and as time goes on, they get shorter and they fall down, and you just cut them off. And I need to plant new ones, and it takes about 5 years before you start collecting the dead leaves. That's fash. It's a different type of pandanus. It's not like any pandanus anywhere in the world, because this kind of pandanus is a textile, and it's called the Marianas pandanus. It's unique.
Describe to us what a pandanus tree looks like for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with it.
Well, it's known as a screw pine, and there's at least 1,000 species. And the one particular species we use as Saipan, even the Falawas use that, they call it fash. Okay, and that fash is the weaving type. And it's the male species. It doesn't have any fruits. Unlike the pandanus in the marshes and in Pohnpei, where the fruits are edible. They're sweet. They're like a treat. It's like our version of the sugar cane, when we chew the sugar cane and we have to extract the juice.
And this is a fruit that's about the size of a basketball,
yes.
hanging down.
That's the kind that they use in the marshes and Pohnpei. But here, the pandanus that we use cannot propagate itself. It cannot grow by itself, so we have to cut the branches and we have to plant them ourselves because it doesn't have any fruits, it doesn't have any seeds. The ancient Chamorros have, for some reason, they trained the tree, and it lost its ability to bear fruits and to have its own seedlings.
And the leaves are kind of long.
They're long.
I want to say they're like sword-like because they have thorns on them, so they're long and thin.
Very long, yeah.
And the trunk is skinny and kind of twisty.
But it's very fibrous, very fibrous.
Yeah.
And strong in the winds, but then when typhoon comes, it ruins the leaves. So that's what we need for weaving. So when the leaves are broken, it's no good for weaving at all because you need the leaves to be nice and straight. Because otherwise you can't weave them because they'll just be breaking off while you're weaving.
So you were talking about the process of collecting and processing and weaving. In the old days, were there specific roles for either genders or ages to participate in this process, or was it like one person who did everything?
No, well, in a family, maybe the teenage boys would be the ones who would gather the leaves or climb up the tree and pull on the dead leaves and bring them over to grandma or whomever, an elderly person in the family. They would have the CE. It's a tool, metal, stainless steel metal, which is triangular and it's very long. And they use that to remove the edges of the leaf. And then they have to remove also right there in the middle, there's a long row of needle-like sharp spines there that has to be removed as well. And when we collect the dead leaves for the mats, we have to roll individually, and then we unroll it the next day, and we braid all the leaves together in the tips so that we can gather them together, and then we throw them out in the sun and dry it some more to get them all nice and bleached by the sun so it comes out nice and brighter and whiter because they get bleached out in the sun. And then after that, they have to hang it overnight so that it stretches and then it gets softer. And then they have to cut the main stem of the leaf to remove it. And they cut everything from the attachment, from the braiding, and they have to roll it up into a nice big roll and set it aside for like a week before they weave mats with them. Because they don't immediately just grab the leaves and weave because they have to wait for it to, they call it like maturing it by leaving it for a little while so it can really get used to the rolling there. So it gets nice and smooth and so. Then before we weave, we have to stretch them. And for weaving mats, you usually have to strip about 6 to 10 hours of one day just to strip all the leaves before you start weaving. Because once you sit down to weave, you're not going to have any time to be stripping because you're just going on and on and on with your weaving. So it takes a long time.
It does. It takes
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of time. Why do you think people are still interested in using the pandanus mat? Which locals are?
Oh, my family still likes to use it. We use it for the kids in the house because
Yeah,
it's a whole lot cooler than carpets. I mean, it's very. We like it in a flat surface, like on wooden floors, and it's raining, and you just unroll that and just get your pillow and lay on it. You can fall asleep very easily, and it's very cool to lay on the pandanus mats.
Maybe it has something to do with the space in between the
I don't
weavings,
know.
or yeah.
But it's just something about it that makes you enjoy when you lay on it. Some elderly people would even unroll their mats and lay on it on top of a mattress, even on a bed. That's how much they like laying on mats. But unfortunately, like you were saying, that it's a dying art. Well, people are just lazy. I just say that they're lazy, and because they feel like they don't need to have to resort to woven mats for sleeping, and just go to the store and just or order a mattress for them to sleep on. It has made it not very popular, and so people, because of the processing and all the time that goes into it, it's just so. How do you say that word? It's very strenuous. It's very strenuous in the body, and even weaving it, you have to sit on the floor, and you're sitting without support in your back, and you're going down like that. You're bending and you're weaving it. So a lot of people don't find it to be something that they want to perpetuate. But here I am. I'm a man, and I've been doing it since I was a little boy. But I love doing it. I do it for the sake of the art. I mean, regardless of what people say, I don't care. I don't mind. People come to visit me at home, and they find me there weaving a bag, and like, "What are you doing? Why can't you just go get it done here or whatever?" I go, "I do have it done here. I have a DFS brand bags for myself, but I'd rather use my woven ones because I made it." And it's like, okay, I've gone to the stage with my woven bag. It's like, isn't that supposed to be a girl's? I go, it's mine because I made it. So I'll go with it and come back. And I'm not shy about it.
By the way, related to that, is there a difference between, because I know in like Yap, there's different shaped bags
Yes.
for different genders and ages.
Right.
Is there anything like that in the Chamorro culture?
For the Chamorro, men usually don't have their bags, unlike the Palauans. Men would have their woven coconut leaf baskets, something similar to the Yapis, but then men don't walk around with bags. And I guess I'm the only one who makes my own and just walks around with it. My birnad in it, and my wallet also, if it's big enough. Like the Yapis. But now, like you see, people don't chew the way they used to, like just like their fellow wash. They don't all chew walla walla anymore. So they chew with cigarette and lime and just about it. That's just the three ingredients that go together to poo. But with me, I have everything. And bags, for me personally, there's no such thing as a man's or woman's bag, other than, of course, the style is the square or rectangular bag with the two handles for women to hold, and that I don't use that kind. I would rather just make my own that's drawstring, and I just stick my hand in there and just hold on to it and walk around. I'm fine. Or baskets are good. That should be good for men, but then now it's just a wallet they use.
Our guest today is Donald Mendiola, and we'll be back after this break.
Did you know that you can donate up to $5,000 to the Humanities Council through the CNMI Education Tax Credit Program? Donations from individuals and corporations qualify and can be used to offset your local wage and salary tax, BGRT, and earnings tax. Call our office at 235-4785 to see how you can support humanities programs in our community and obtain a tax credit for your donation. Sizuus Maasi, Olomai, and thank you.
Welcome back to your Humanities Half-hour. We're talking about the craft of pandanas weaving in the Marianas. with Senor Donald Mendiola. He is one of the traditional cultural practitioners of this art form, as well as many others. Senor, what is the value you feel in continuing this traditional knowledge?
With weaving, not only weaving, but then this in particular, if we're talking about it, it identifies me, okay? And it's something that I like, that I treasure, that I really would like to teach others to perpetuate, to teach them how to process. I know it's very difficult because it takes time. It's a very lengthy procedure to make anything from pandanus. But I wish somebody were interested, and I'm pretty sure somebody out there would like to learn, would like to know, and I'm always willing to teach anybody who wants to. Unlike coconut frond weaving is very simple. It's easy to learn. But with pandanus, the reason why, I suppose, is because it's an intricate kind of weaving.
And time consuming. So this is not an easy thing to pick up quickly. It's going to take some dedication.
Yeah.
What do you feel are the cultural values contained in doing this particular type of art?
Okay. Because this type of weaving is shared throughout the Pacific, because they use the same material. In other places, they get into this kind of art because they make money out of it. They sell their products. I don't sell any of my products. What I do is because when with a close friend of mine, if a close friend were to leave, I would go ahead and I would make something and just tell the person that, take this and please treasure it, because it's something that comes from me, comes from my heart, and I weave it and it's for you. I guess it's me. So when I make anything and I give it away to somebody, it's my giving of myself to the person when I give it away. It's not just like the regular $10 one that you buy from a gift shop. That is something that I put my sweat onto, my meditation, my concentration on when I give to somebody. So for me, spiritually, it's like a giving of myself, giving of my heart, because I love doing it. So everything that I do with that kind of an art is my total giving of myself to whomever I present it to.
What do you think it would take in order for us not to lose this part of our culture?
If we can truly go out there and find anybody who's interested, there has to be somebody. I can't be the last person. Even at my age, I'm already in the manam category, so there has to be somebody out there. It's just like the usos. The kids are very good with making usos nowadays because it's readily available now at the schools, the Carolinian classes. And we're even applying it in the Carolinian, the Chamorro classes. It's something that's so easy that we can teach them how to work with. And, it's easy to get those usos now, and the tehus we teach them. But the difficulty about pandanas is that not only that it's time consuming, but then it takes many years for you to plant your tree and then you start harvesting. It takes about 5 years from when you plant it and start harvesting the leaves for you to start using it. But during that time, the 5-year period, that would be the best timing for anybody who's interested to start learning the weaving patterns and the designs and the processing of the leaves as the tree is growing up. That would be the right timing for them to learn. And I believe the IAO, the Office of IAO,
Indigenous
Affairs Office.
Yes.
They have a tree, and I've suggested that they cut down those old branches and propagate more. And get it already, so whoever knows how to weave can probably come up there and just gather or get some of the leaves there. And so that's one way for this weaving to be perpetuated. That the material is going to be readily available if they have the trees there, with the leaves being harvested by those who know how to use them and not just waste them. Because some people say that it's full of trash. It's just a trashy tree because it's got so many leaves falling down, and if people don't know how to use them, they just burn them or throw them away or just kill the tree. But with me, every single one that is usable, I gather, I roll them up, and save them on the side, and just leave them and get them ready for me to utilize them, to weave them. Because it's not only, you can also make some sorts of ropes and ties with the leaves anyway. So there's many different ways that the pandanus can be used.
Could I ask you to share a little bit as we come down to the end of our show in Chamorro about what this means to you and what you feel it means to the Chamorro people to preserve this knowledge?
Manfuk no, manfuk antes nili nyanda puru para so tu famalawan dan para manam kwa potinegwi logos na manyo si pau sa tana dan na piniti ipara paguna tempo taza stanu tumu dan taza mintirisa unu ga interes neste pro continua sina tiningo antes fina na gini manantigo nesse sei para matano miaga kumagwa lukiaga kumasod ni marozu masisi magagus batufuk dan fan mamana gi papa gi fa magun se stina particularmente gi cultura ni Chamorro dan followers debe na continua estina clase tiningo dan fina na gi sa go mismo ni lahi no dos na piniti para famalawan ni tumu sa ziling ginagay lingnan na sa famalawan sa lalaman na hono man nanad man gwagwalo man pepeska de famalawan fan mamang foglo go ni laya tanan na go tumuli tuli kulang kat go ku za go huno mananano magga ku rorozo tutufuk da malago dan be famalawan gelo hazi preciso da malago no tu pio de sta tu mafuk sinya be famalawan gelo kinu afasana fina no decoration no pattern dan todo sa fana kritinifuk YouTube sa guasa no tiningo ogiani lumili kuzu gani sa masono to ki fastback. I was mentioning that if anybody knows how to weave and is interested in learning some new patterns or designs, to come and see me because I've picked up several types of designs and patterns as I was traveling through the fastback. I've even picked up some weaving patterns from the Cook Islands and from New Zealand and from other places throughout the Pacific that was down there at the New Zealand when I was down there in 1993 when we had the Master Weaver Symposium, which I represented at CNMI. And I picked up several different types of weaving. There they use flax. They don't have pandanas. And it's a lot stronger, but it's very difficult to work with because it's very fibrous, a very fibrous plant. And it's just grass, but it's very strong. That's where you get flax from.
So if anybody's interested, maybe, hopefully, in picking up this craft, how can they reach you?
They just ask where I live, and everybody knows where I live. I live at Aslito. And
best to stop by.
Yeah, stop by.
Okay.
And I need to start planting my new trees because U2 devastated all my trees, so I need to plant new ones.
Or if anybody has fash, Marianas pandanas.
Yes.
That they're willing to allow you to harvest. Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, I have several rolls all preserved already that I prepared and that I kind of like foresaw happening. So I have big rolls already at home for weaving. So I'll be okay for the next 5 years.
Our guest today has been Donald Mendiola, traditional cultural practitioner. Thank you, Senor Mendiola, for sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome. In Chamorro we say, buen hinemlo, buen minalik, dan buen dinalak.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. Contact us at nmhcouncil.org or on Facebook at 670 Humanities. If you'd like to hear previous Your Humanities Half-hour shows, subscribe to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council YouTube channel. This has been Your Humanities Half-hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.